When I was growing up, upset stories were magical. They were literally called stories. Let me tell you about this magical adventure this team went on. For my specific age group, growing up, you always heard about teams like the '69 Mets, how improbable of a run it was. If you want to go to the 2008 Tampa Bay Rays, their first year being over 500, making it all the way to the World Series. We're going to have Tony on here later, a team like the 2012 Baltimore Ravens. We used to always talk about these teams. It was a story. There was an art form to this. It was fun. It was exciting. The team no one believed in. Now, due to the internet, Twitter, social media, we don't really enjoy upset stories anymore. The NFL playoffs are about to start, and there's a bunch of upsets that are on the potential. Packers going to the Eagles, Broncos going to the Bills, and whoever plays the Chiefs. A lot of potentials for upsets. And those should be celebrated and enjoyed and should be teams that we talk about forever. But instead, we've done the opposite. The way we discuss upsets now are not, wow, how incredible of a run or how incredible of a team. It's, we just want to put our favorite athletes in McDonald's outfits and Best Buy uniforms and say, wow, this is how they act when they're in the playoffs. We want to put someone that they look alike and say, man, when I bet U.S. currency on him, this is who he turns into. We want everyone to look like Drewski. That's what we want to do. You want to put Photoshop Drewski in your favorite team or player's jersey. We don't celebrate these great underdog teams anymore. We just shame the team that lost. And why? Do you know how many more interesting storylines there are in uplifting some of these teams that no one has real expectations, no one believes in, these magical stories that could occur? We have 2 rookie quarterbacks in the playoffs. 2. Jaden Daniels and Bo Nix. What if either of them win? I think Jaden Daniels, it's more likely he's playing the Bucs. I think people think slightly less of that Bucs team versus the Broncos and Bo Nix, they're playing the Bills. But what if, just hear me out here, and I'm not trying to just be a fan, but just hear me out. What if Bo Nix and the Broncos beat the Bills? You're not going to hear people come on TV or go on sports radio and say, man, did you see that, what Sean Payton's doing, that game plan, that scheme, all the dead cap money they have from Russell Wilson. Look how they rebuilt all this stuff in this last 24 months. Look at how great this looks. Let's give credit to the receivers no one's talking about. Marvin Mims, even though he's a Pro Bowler. Let's give credit to Devon Vele as a rookie who's growing into his own. Cortland Sutton, who's proven he's still a number 1 wide receiver. Bo Nix, the 6th quarterback drafted, making his all the way and beating Josh Allen, the guy who most people believe is going to be the MVP of the National Football League. No, we're going to say Josh Allen when it's a serious moment and you're going to Photoshop a celebrity on him. Doug McDermott. I can't even get into Doug McDermott memes on a YouTube video. I'll be demonetized. We're just going to shame and we're going to put down the team that loses to the point of we don't even enjoy the actual game. What if Jaden Daniels goes on a run when no one expects him to? They beat the Bucs, and then let's say they beat obviously one of the higher seeds. If they're the 6 seed remaining, they'd get to play the Lions. What if Jaden Daniels, as a rookie, beats the 1 seed Detroit Lions? We're not going to sit here, and people aren't going to go on sports radio and say, wow, Jaden Daniels, what a hell of a season. Oh my gosh, this is like RG3 2.0, but it's even better. No, we're going to laugh at Jared Goff and make fun of Dan Campbell and make memes about Ben Johnson. Like, the beauty of sports and the beauty of what should be sports media and commentary is being able to create these stories. Whether it's the all-time dominant team like the Kansas City Chiefs, or it's one of these teams that could write beautiful upset stories like the Broncos, or the Commanders are going to have a chance, or even hell, the Packers are the 7th seed again. What if they beat Philadelphia in back-to-back years? We knock off the Eagles and the Cowboys as clear underdogs. What does that do for Jordan Love's trajectory? What does that do for Jordan Love's story? But most people don't want to talk about the story from the underdog perspective. Most people don't want to sit there and embrace the positive and uplifting thing. No, we want to clown on and we want to laugh. And we're destroying the value in what is a truly wonderful upset story, which are some of the best stories written throughout the history of sports. Why do we want to take that away from ourselves? There's no reason to. But no, go on the internet, get your jokes off, make your memes. There's a bunch of wonderful and amazing storylines that could happen. What if the Chargers, who are an underdog, what if Jim Harbaugh potentially goes back-to-back national championship Super Bowl? Could you imagine that? No, we'll talk about the failure of the Chiefs in crunch time, or the Bills unable to get it done, or we'll discuss, Lamar in the playoffs. Jim Harbaugh could go back-to-back 2 different levels of the sport and win championships. That's a storyline. That's something that we can push. It just feels sad, man. Like we're losing the joy and the magic of some of these truly wonderful upsets. Now, to a team that I don't think is going to be upset, the Lions-Vikings obviously played last night. It was the first time in NFL history 2 teams with 14-plus wins played, and the pendulum was going a little too far. The Lions, and I understand it, were suffering a bunch of injuries. The Lions their defense has been horrible the last month due to a lot of these injuries. But they were the best team all season. For all these people, and again, everybody was on, a lot of the public was on Minnesota last night. Sam Darnold, look at how he's playing. Justin Jefferson, Kevin O'Connell, all of the love and the adoration and the attention was all on Minnesota. Detroit had been the best team in the NFL and in the NFC specifically for talking about seeding since week 1. This was their year. They felt like they should have been the 1 seed, and they went out there, they kicked ass, they dominated, and they felt like the best team in the NFC, which is what they've been all year. We complain, and I've been doing it too, that the Kansas City Chiefs as a 15-2 team don't quite feel like the best team in the AFC. Blocked field goal here or questionable call there. All these things that are going on that we feel like they're not as good as what their record says. Well, then we should be uplifting a team like the Lions who feel exactly as good as the record is, if not better. Because if the Lions, ask yourself this, if the Lions were healthy on defense, would they be clear Super Bowl favorites? Not just in Vegas, but to yourself and the overwhelming majority. If they had Aiden Hutchinson and all these guys that they lost on defense, wouldn't they be clearly the Super Bowl favorite? The team that was clearly the best in the NFL? No, we're going to sit there and we want, and again, no disrespect to what Sam Darnold and the Vikings did. They had a great season. But this idea that the last 2 to 3 weeks or 3 to 4 weeks, because of injuries and because of, again, we were just enamored with Sam Darnold had been so bad, with all due respect, in our memories for 6+ years that we're like, oh, well, he can't really be this. Jared Goff has been to a Super Bowl, was kicked out by the Rams. We know the story of Detroit. It feels like a tough physical team. They take after Dan Campbell. And this might be their only shot. And this is a team that probably recognized this might be their only shot being this good. Not just from a talent perspective, but from a coaching perspective. When are you ever going to have 2 coordinators like Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn who are probably head coaches next year? So congrats to Minnesota. It's been an incredible season. It's also got a chance to go real bad real fast if you go from 14-2, Sam Darnold talking about $50 million contracts. Oh, we could move J.J. McCarthy. We're so set up. And it could potentially end with losing that game to the Lions and then your first playoff game against the Rams, and now you're out. But the Lions, that's the team you want to see be the 1 seed. They were the most dominant from start to finish. They were the best team in the NFL the entirety of the season. They should be the 1 seed. If Minnesota, despite how great the record is, you wouldn't walk into the playoffs and go, oh yeah, clearly Sam Darnold and the Minnesota Vikings are the number 1 seed in the NFC. We've been giving Kansas City shit for this all year. And the only thing Kansas City really has to fall back on is pedigree. They're the 2-time defending champs. They have a resume, despite that this individual season might not show it. They have the resume of being multiple-time champions. We know Andy Reid We know Mahomes, we know Kelsey, we know Chris Jones, all these things. But the Lions, clap it up for them. A franchise that was historically bad. Historically bad. Even with great players, even with Barry Sanders, still bad. Even with Calvin Johnson, still bad. Even with Matthew Stafford, still bad. Can now sit there and go, we're the number one seed in the NFC. We've been the best football team from start to finish. And now they get the bye, get a chance to get a little more healthy. That was good. This is the difference, one of the many, between the NFL and the NBA. What the Lions did, winning that game, when the Spurs used to be great with Duncan, Parker, and Ginobili, they weren't just great for a stretch. They weren't just great for the playoffs. They were great start of the season, all the way to the end of the season, all the way until they held up a trophy. We love the San Francisco Giants of that late 2000s, early 2010s. Get hot, win a World Series title. We love the stories of Eli Manning, get hot at the end of the season, win, beat the undefeated Patriots. But for the long-term health of a sport and to make the regular seasons in all of these sports feel like they matter immensely, a team like Detroit being the number one seed, that stuff's important. They won that game. They deserved it. They were the best team in football, start to finish. We're going to take a quick break here. When we come back, I know it's a quarterback league. Obviously, no one's going to dispute that. But a lot of the best teams in the NFL right now, it's because of their running back, not necessarily their quarterback. So much so that there's a team that's still a favorite, and we don't even know if their quarterback's healthy or going to be able to play in their first playoff game. That and much more. This is HardFoul Radio. We'll be back momentarily.